Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to dive further into the Oracle Cloud infrastructure and really looking at considerations for multiple IDCS domains. Before we jump into it here, this is part of a series where we talk about other aspects of OCI, the Active Directory bridge, provisioning bridge, syncing users into IDCS. And so this just continues to build upon those prior webinars. However, they are standalone. So if you only care about what we're going to discuss today, great. This will be good. If you're interested in some of the other webinars, check them out individually. You don't have to go in any particular order, really as to what your time and interest lie. But thank you in advance for checking out those webinars, or if you attended those, thank you. So we talk about multiple IDCS domains. Why do we even care, or how would we ever use this or use multiple IDCS domains? Well, you may have, depending upon your cloud application, whether you're talking about a development or production environment, and you don't want to give all the same users access or partial access to one environment or another. You think of development and production. Well, hopefully you're an organization that has at least a development, a QA, and a production where you're not going to have your end users log into development. You don't want to even accidentally give them access to that, nor do you want to say, well, here is the access that the user needs for production, and they automatically get access to development. So if they find the URL to development, they're automatically in and looking at things. And naturally, when you're in development, things might be half working. You might be troubleshooting issues because you're mid-development, you're mid-sprint, and you don't want users to open up tickets for that. Nor do you want them to say, well, okay, hey, what you're building is wrong. Like, oh my goodness, we aren't even close to being done. This sprint or this story or this project just started, or we're only partway through. And so to create that separation, that might be one use case for why you'd have multiple IDCS domains. You may also have from an internal versus external users. Think of, you have your employees, great. They're obviously the internal users, but then external, you might have partners, consumers that log in, and you want to have that separation from a security perspective so that you don't kind of mix people together, mix environments together. Naturally, you want to make sure that the data that you have is only accessible to certain data accessible to internal users compared to external users. And having these multiple domains gives you that flexibility in order to ensure that from a security perspective, things are separated. Yes, you're going to use variables in order to say, well, internal users can see A, B, and C, external users can see X, Y, Z. That's good from a data perspective. It's good from a, if you're in OAC and you have a dashboard or there's a particular module within another application, this is just that additional layer that when you are talking and proving from whether it's an internal security audit, you're talking with the security team just upfront at the beginning of the project of here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. And you may even have rules that are governed or already implemented today as to rules of engagement in working with OCI and internal customers versus external users. You may also have multiple identity domains, lots of different tools and technologies out there, especially in the larger enterprises. Those enterprises might be in a journey to consolidate identity domains from a tooling perspective. You might be consolidating by saying, okay, we are going to sunset A, B, and C identity domain, and this identity domain is going to be the new go forward. So think of the Entra from formerly Azure AD, and that's going to be the the direction that you're going to. You might say, well, we're going to be an Entra customer, but we're also going to have, we have some on-premise things. We have some legacy identity domains, and now you need an aggregator. So think of a tool such as, or platform such as SailPoint. And SailPoint is going to be your master identity domain that you're going through a longer term project that you're eventually going to get to SailPoint, and you want to just leverage SailPoint that might contain internal and external users. It could contain users from different identity domains aggregated up through. So lots of different reasons as to why you might need identity domains. Some of those could be, all right, I just in the short term for the next X months, the next X years, but eventually we are going to have a single identity domain. Great. You have the ability to kind of grow as your organization evolves. And so this is why we're talking about the need or the use cases around those multiple identity domains. We talked about what some of these other aggregators or tools out there that you might be have in your organization. Some of these might be familiar to you. Others might be brand new. I've never heard of this. Well, at the end of the day, you could be very much an Oracle centric from an application perspective. Whether you're on your EBS/Fusion journey, you're perhaps PeopleSoft or JD Edwards, or you might just have one of these applications. You could be an Oracle and SAP organization, or maybe you're primarily SAP because you're a global manufacturer, and you may have some Oracle things as well. I'm Mike Jellin. I've been in the data and analytics space for a couple of decades now, really helping organizations of all size, whether that's at the enterprise, from a global perspective, everything in between, to really maximize their investment, not only into OCI, but really across their enterprise suite of applications and getting those to work together, especially when we talk about data and analytics. OCI being where OAC runs. So whether you're migrating from OBI into OAC or you've been running OAC for a while and you're being asked to do more and more with that. Of course, the data being the pseudo lumber, we're great. Lots and lots of data. That data is the foundation, but it's only as good as what you've put into the data. So is the data clean? Is it accurate? How are you joining those data sources together? Because it's not just about, hey, tell me all the data that's in Salesforce, or tell me just about the data that's within EBS. I want to marry up data between those two applications for analytics purposes. I want to add time entry data. I want to enter HR data. Those are naturally different sources, typically different vendors. And I want to bring all that data together because I want to start looking, operationally, I want to start looking across my organization, not just within an individual application. It's really helping customers figure that out from, what is that use case? What is that opportunity? And that opportunity could be positive where, we have some new workloads, new insights, new direction, new business units that we're supporting, from an organizational perspective. On the flip side, you might say, look, we're consolidating applications. We are looking to make sure we're operating as efficient as possible. So we need to make sure we're reducing costs from various tools, various technologies that are happening. And so we need to leverage data in order to do that. Great. It's interesting if you get into the nuts and bolts of technology, but if you're not applying that technology appropriately, you're really missing the mark and you're not providing value to the organization. That value is not going to be seen in the technology, nor is it going to be seen in the people that are involved with that technology. So that's why it's very important. And we believe this at our heart and soul that yes, technology is important, but it's more important to make sure we are addressing those business opportunities so that we can show the value and that there is true ROI from these investments and not just interesting technology spend. So whether we're talking about BI and analytics, talking about that data integration, data transformation, building a warehouse, building data marts, being a part of the team, from a project perspective, being part of the team from just an ongoing month over month perspective, and really understanding our role as a consulting organization is to be a good partner. And the way that we're a good partner to you is by understanding our role and acting accordingly. And what we really mean by that is during projects, we're enabling your team so that as the project is going on, decisions are made where it's a collective team process. But more importantly, everyone is there for the understanding of the pros and cons of different choices, those recommendations, to be able to ask questions along the way. And that also is that learning so that you get to the end of a project, and whether that's a couple of months down the road or longer, they look back and say, well, why do we make that choice? Or, had I known A, B, and C, I would have perhaps made a different decision. Plus, there's also just leveraging the technology and making sure that you're following best practices, getting the most out of the technology and your investments as well, and training and enabling your team members along the way so that we understand we're not going to be there forever. Your projects and that partnership will ebb and flow. Sometimes you might be doing a lot of work, and other times you might be doing far less work. But that really is driven by you, so that you have that comfort and really that understanding of the how and the why throughout the journey of that technology. Of course, we do also offer non-IT types of resources and really expertise that we bring to the table, whether that's really looking at that business analysis that tends to be heavily focused on the business or the functional side of the organization, relative to if it's marketing, finance, operations, etc. So let's jump into a bit deeper into this multiple IDCS domains. So for some of you out there, Oracle is your universe, and it is your sun at the end of the day. It shines bright every day. Sure, some days might be cloudy, others days perfectly sunny. But at the end of the day, you're all in on Oracle. You try to leverage Oracle, the entire Oracle technology stack, from ERP to CRM to data and analytics, data integration, and everything else that's under the sun within Oracle, which is awesome. This is for you as well, depending upon your security. But for others, Oracle is a key component into an enterprise architecture. And there is no right or wrong way. It's really what makes sense to you. And of course, over time, we're definitely seeing, there's, best of breed types of applications. And really, as your organization changes, your organization might change because you're making acquisitions. It might be because you have been acquired and now you're trying to assimilate to the new organization, or vice versa. New technology, new platforms, new business lines come in. It introduces new technology. So understanding that technology grows and evolves, on its own. You think of just even shadow IT projects. Well, those projects tend to mean at some point that there might be some new technology introduced that it's picked up significant steam and momentum within your organization. And now you have to figure out at the enterprise level, how do we coexist? Obviously, there's security considerations, there's data, and then there's just the general, let's make sure we're not duplicating processes and making things more efficient, or I should say, making things less efficient because of things that the organization has done in order to prove out, yep, this is the right direction for us from a platform, from how we're using the platform. But then at some point, things can get really big and hairy and needs more structure and governance around that, so that it is properly governed and maintained at the end of the day. And part of that maintenance and governing is really security, making sure that users don't have 100 different IDs and logins to all these different applications. You think of, all right, one, from just an end user perspective, that's a real pain in the butt. Now to have to constantly remember all these different passwords and even logins. But then even from an onboarding perspective, a ticket comes in the help desk that says, hey, Mike's a new user, I need to set him up. An efficiency of setting Mike up once or as few times as possible and having that propagated throughout the application ecosystem or the enterprise, that's preferred. Because on the inverse is someday Mike moves on from the company for whatever reason, he wins the lottery. Well, great. Now to deprovision Mike, you want to make that as easy and streamline as process, because obviously you don't want to have to go out and make sure that, oh, these 57 different applications, I need to confirm that Mike was removed, or I need to also send out a number of different tickets to different groups to make sure that they do their part. And I have to follow up and make sure that their part is done. That's not efficient at all. So when you think of within OCI, you can actually have a subscription tier. And depending upon your subscription tier, you have different rules as to and capabilities relative to the different types of the really domains. However, think of the identity providers, that where all these IDs stored that you need to pull from. So depending upon your particular tier and how many IDPs that you have, IDP being identity providers, will translate into the number that identity providers that you can have, and the number of different domains that you can have set up. So it's a consideration. You might say, you know what, I'm well under each of these numbers. Great, but there's other features and things to think about, from just the number of users that you have within your organization, especially with internal versus external users, and groups. Groups can get a bit verbose, depending upon the number of applications that are within your organization, and how if applications need to have their own individual groups that get set up into your identity provider, or just even within your IDCS domain itself, things to consider. And of course, the number of groups, and then that nesting as well. So things to take into account as you're thinking of, well, which tier do I need? If you're already a large enterprise and you're all in on OCI, you most likely are already well covered, and it's been thought out over a longer period of time as to which domain type do you really need, or what you already subscribe to. So this may be decided for you already, which is not a bad thing. So you do have to remember, so when it comes to the IDCS domains, there's one by default that comes with your account, your OCI account, which makes sense. But then if you want secondary or additional instances, you have to create them yourself. And it's really the cloud account administrator that's the owner of that primary instance. So whoever the main person is that owns your OCI account. And when I say own, internally, you're going to have somebody that pays for that account. Sure, that's the financial owner. But then you're going to have somebody that is the maintainer, typically a solution architect of some sort. It could be an enterprise architect that owns, where their account is the one that's the primary assigned to that instant. That cloud account administrator is the only one that can go ahead and add others and allow others to create other identities. And so in this particular example here, we have Mark as the cloud account administrator. However, he's just that Uber admin. He's going to delegate authority to Jerome, and Jerome is going to give the privilege to create identities or identity instances. And so that's important. You think of the least privileged approach from a security perspective, to give Jerome what he needs to do, versus just, I'm going to have 10 different cloud account administrators. Well, that you could do that, but now you have 10 people that can essentially do anything and everything that they want to do within there, which that might be a little bit too much flexibility and too much freedom, especially when you think of from a controlling perspective. And naturally, things within OCI, what you use and what you consume needs to align with your overall subscription. So that is another reason you don't want to get too carried away and let lots of people do whatever they want within OCI. And then so Jerome would go ahead and create a secondary instance from an identity cloud perspective. And We talk about a development versus production earlier, and assign different people really that identity domain administrator, that IDP administrator. And so you can even separate that out further, where Jerome, while he created the instance, he doesn't have to be the administrator of that instance. He can delegate that, one of those to different people, or he could just have two people or one person handle both of those identity domain instances. Really up to you, but the power is there to separate as granular as you need. And so, to make it more simple, perhaps your organization, you just don't have enough people in order to have all of this separation, that Mark delegates to Jerome, and from there, Jerome just takes it, and he is the one that's going to create and own these identity domain instances. So very easy to do. Where now Jerome is yes, he did provision another identity domain instance, and of course he assigned himself as the administrator for that. That's okay. At the end of the day, your organization and the size of the people and the roles that people have, it's all up to you. It's going to be unique to you at the end of the day, and there's flexibility to change this as your team and your organization changes and evolves as well, to add permissions, to revoke permissions, to add users, of course, to remove users from this identity instance creation privilege. You could even have where Mark is the cloud account administrator, but Mark creates the new domain instance and this assigns Jerome as the administrator to that. That could be an option as well. Depending, again, it's all about you and your organization and what that means to you. So you just got to remember, if you have multiple data regions in your organization available to you in OCI, that before you create that second identity instance, you want to make sure you're in the right data region. Now, if you only have one data region, not a big deal. But if you do have multiple, just remember and pay attention and be mindful and be intentional of which data region you're creating this instance in. You can't undo it other than you create that second identity instance. If you say, whoops, I created in the wrong one, you just have to delete it and then recreate in the correct data region. So one of those that for many customers, they're only in one data region, not a big deal, but for others, a big deal. So you think of these different pieces of identity domain, especially when it comes to IDCS, that you might say, hey, this is what I need to do in my ecosystem today, but I know in a year time frame or X months time frame, we need to start thinking about a future direction. That future direction could be we're getting asked to go in a new direction, or we're part of a much larger ecosystem where we bought companies, or we have bought companies, or we're about to buy companies, or you're just trying to understand, all right, we've been going in this direction for X number of years. What are other organizations doing? What are alternative options to looking at data, analytics, machine learning, and AI? And just want to understand, what is that outside perspective for Oracle stack, and then a non-Oracle stack. It just gives you additional food for thought and gives you real world use cases and understanding of what are other things, or maybe different ways to think about the future. It's not a bashing type of a session. That some of you inherited different technologies for different reasons. Sure, others of you made decisions based upon what things were in prior years as to why we went in a particular direction. That's great. There's nobody's made bad or wrong decisions here. It's just about, hey, the data and analytics space, especially with AI and ML, has changed dramatically in the last number of years. And it's quite frankly hard to keep up with it if you're not in that space on a very regular basis. in order to, one, be hands-on, and two, from another customer perspective, to say what and why are people going and thinking about new directions. And just because it's a new direction doesn't mean you have to or you should go there. You need to determine, does this make sense? Or what pieces of that art of what's possible makes sense to me and my organization, especially knowing today where we're going. And then you're able to build, and we help you build a roadmap of consideration for things to look at, down the road and over time. Obviously, large decisions, especially ones around technology and platforms that have been part of an organization for many, many years. Users are using it to make key business decisions. There needs to be, proper planning and proper roadmap and proper timing in order to facilitate that. Of course, there's the financial aspect that also needs to be taken into account, on top of the, what should we be doing? So all those factors play into a roadmap, and we understand and appreciate that. And that's why we have these conversations with you in order to help out on that journey. So thank you for attending today. We'd love to chat with you about your individual situation. Your journey really is the best way to put it. And so we'd love to be part of your journey and help you out in any way that we can. And naturally, feel free to reach out to us on social media, via our website, or drop us a line directly. We love chatting with you. We love talking with customers at the end of the day and helping them progress over time. So thank you again, everybody. We'll see you on the next webinar.